At this time, I will turn the program over to Kahler Communications President, Cyril Collignon.
Thank you, Heather. The first PCM trainer received his certification from Dr. Taibi Kahler himself in the US in 1982. His name was Aegis Keppers Senior. Nowadays, we are more than 4,000 PCM certified trainers and coaches all over the world. Good morning and good evening. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this unique PCM World Webinar. We are here together from 36 countries. PCM has grown by the word of mouth because it works, because it's a daily tool to make the difference. We will continue to invest in tech and marketing to support all of you using this powerful tool in your work and at home. I've met him when I was a teenager 34 years ago. The third generation, the grandchildren of the first PCM trainers, starts to be interested by his discoveries on human behaviors. After 7 years out the spotlight, we have the super chance to welcome you, Taibi Kahler. Thank you. Thank you, Taibi. Mickaël Dufourneaud, our COO, will lead the genuine conversation. Let's enjoy the answers of your questions.
Thank you Cyril, so much for making this happen.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mickaël, for being our moderator today. And I feel honored and privileged to address all of you. And all of you PCMers, thank you for sharing in our mission. Thank you for working so hard, getting the information and sharing it. Thank you for caring so much that you want to do this. Thank you for your creativity in how to market and coming up with new ways of sharing the information. And thank you for imagining a world in which we are helping people better to communicate and making it happen. Goodness. And a special shout out to all of my fellow certifying master trainers. Jerome, Nate, John, and whom have I left out? Good gracious. John, Nate? Oh, I've gotten everybody, I think. Jerome, yeah, Gerard, Nate, John, yes, and Jerome. Oh, goodness gracious. I'm getting too old. You know, I really haven't been away from PCM. I've been out of the spotlight. Actually, I spend 2 to 3 days a week in some way involved in PCM. And I help with some of the editing and the rewrites of the materials. I communicate with other PCMers. I've even written 2 articles that will be forthcoming, one on the theory of human development. And I've added some more information about developmental stages and issues and phasings. And so I have been passively active. That will give you a hint about my phase and stage, my phase and base, won't it? Good gracious. Okay, Mickaël, I understand that there are some questions.
Yes, thank you.
Will you please ask apace?
I had the privilege to choose from so many questions around the world. As Cyril said, there's like around 40 countries represented here today. And thanks to you, thanks to your model, I think we are all passionate. And for me, it's an honor, a real honor to be able to be the moderator today and to interview you, Taibi. So thank you for answering the call. It's so good to be here and to spend some time sharing around this beautiful model. I know we are using every day the tools that you've created, and we're using them to spread the word now. It's going to be a good chance to make a daily difference, because that's going to be our leitmotif now with PCM, to make a daily difference in people's life, whether it's professional or personal, because that's the feedbacks we've had all around the world. So we have so many CPs that are presented here today, and I want to make a special thanks to all our distributors around the world, because they are as we have many countries, we also have many distributors, and they are involved and passionate, and they're making such a great job. As you said, they are making it happen. So yeah, big thank to them. So the first question first for me, Taibi, is how are you doing today? You started to answer that question, and I think that's a question that's coming up along. You look great, and I know we've connected quite a few times to prepare that webinar, and I'm so glad to have you around and have you doing some research. Is there a specific answer you want to give about yourself and how you're doing research and how you're doing today?
I'm doing better today, thank you. I've had some recurring back problems, but by golly, this too shall pass.
There are some themes around all the questions, so I chose the questions and I picked them accordingly to some specific themes, and there was two major themes coming back. It's the first one was around NASA and how this tool has always been used by NASA. I got some great news around that, because we have a French astronaut that is going to be on SpaceX mission next week. You know, is onboarding on SpaceX next week, and he has created a cartoon like that. And in this cartoon, there is a place where he's talking about his PCM training. So to all the CPs around the world that are wondering if PCM is still used by NASA, of course, there is some confidentiality around this of how do we have those PPIs done for NASA, but good thing. We know for sure, for a fact, that it is still used today by NASA in the training of astronauts. And that was the first question. There was a question from, maybe I'm not going to pronounce that name very correctly, but it's Luigina Sgaro from Italy. But wanted to know if there was some evidence of the use of PCM in astronauts training. So that's a good evidence to my point of view. Of course, we have some more internally, and maybe you want to say a few words around your experience with NASA at the beginning.
Yes, let me give you a brief history. Back in 1978, I got a call from Dr. Terry McGuire, the lead psychiatrist at NASA, and he said, I'm familiar with your work, and I'd like to see it in action. Will you come to Houston and be involved for a few days in the selection of astronauts? And I said, golly, yeah, absolutely. He said, I understand that you can predict accurately the general kinds of distress. And he said, that's really important to us. And I said, be glad to. And I spent 2 days with this most remarkable man, whom I am so fond of, and we've been friends ever since. This was 1978. I FaceTimed with him just last week. He had a fall, he's doing better, and his mind is wonderful. During the interviews, these lasted for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and I was allowed to interact. And so in the first 5 minutes or so, I offered the channel, different channels, different perceptions. I looked for driver behavior. I looked for the ability to shift to different floors in the candidate's personality type. Long story short, at the end of the 5 minutes, I put my pad down, and he continued to the interview for the hour and a half or two. At the end of the 2 days, we compared notes, and he was so kind as to say, "You have gotten as much or more information than I have. How do you do that? I've got to know that." And he has since documented that in forwards of books, and that began our friendship. Matter of fact, he became the godfather to both Bo and Jason. I worked with monthly with him and his psychiatric residents for several years. And he started using the information from the 1978 all the way to 1994 when he retired. I do have something I want to share. And Cyril, I will make a copy of this if you don't have it, and see to it that it's in the files for PCM. This is a handwritten letter from Terry on his stationery, and I'd like to read it to you. It's brief. This is from February 20th, 2010. Hi, Taibi. This is to confirm in writing something you and I have discussed in the past. While functioning as NASA's lead psychiatrist for manned spaceflight, I predicted significant crew friction between selected crew members on 5 occasions. The primary source of friction was commonly someone imposed upon the flight for political reasons. In 4 of the 5 instances, the conflict became visible in flight. In the 5th instance, a crew member deemed vulnerable to the activities of the prime provocateur volunteered to me post-flight, "One more day and I'd have killed him." In each case, the behavioral predictions were based upon what I have learned from you and the studies of process communication through which you guided me. With respect and appreciation, Terrence F. McGuire.
So nice, so nice.
What I've also just heard from Terry is that there are 2 famous writers who are interviewing him. One is already a New York Times best-selling author, and he is interviewing Terry about the Challenger catastrophe.
Mm-hmm.
Another is a podcaster and scientific writer, and she's interviewing Terry about how were the female astronauts selected. Aha.
Mm-hmm. I remember seeing him in news last time we were there, and he was saying, he was just amazing in the way he presented, and he was saying that NASA was so much around PCM that sometimes they were using PCM without knowing about it because it was in their genes.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, he is an incredible fellow. Most remarkable. He invented the first high altitude spacesuit, and he co-invented while he was in the Navy the first external heart defibrillator, touching millions of lives. Okay.
Thank you. And a question that I found very intriguing and nice from Fabian in the USA, Fabian Hartford, and she's asking, if you could only pick one thing, I guess one tool, what would want someone to take away and apply from PCM? What is the one tool that you would pick from all the tools that you have provided?
It's to appreciate the power, potency, and significance of process, And what I mean by that is the focusing on that someone else's view of the world, their perception of the world is just as accurate, is just as real, is just as true as our perception is, and to value that in someone else, to appreciate it, and to realize, my goodness, other people have different psychological motivations. There are different ways that are important for them to be able to function. And for us to leave with that kind of value and appreciation of another human being, I think is one of the wonderful gifts that we give them in PCM.
So agree with you. Yeah. Perception. Then there was a lot, I have to say, of questions that were regarding the phase. So it's an intriguing concept and a very impressive concept when we are digging into PCM. So I have a question for the start from Matthew Gallagher from USA that is asking, what more will you say to help us better understanding the phasing? For example, does someone start demonstrating distress behaviors from the floor above their phase in prolonged distress? So it's always interesting. It's like the rapport from when we are phasing and the new psychological needs. So is there a way for you to quickly put some light around that?
The answer is no, we do not have distress above our phase. And let me start out with what is phasing? Let's define phasing.
Yes.
Phasing is that period of time that we are in second degree distress of our phase because we are in the process of bringing into awareness that we need to feel and experience the authentic emotion that we never did. Now, and what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that phasing occurs under two circumstances then. One, that the issue that is related to that phase way back in the first 5 years or so of our life relative to that developmental stage was unresolved. Now let me say this again in different ways.
Please.
This is key. When we're in a phase, we either come into that phase in life as an adult or later on than childhood. We come into that with either the issue that's associated with it resolved or unresolved. Well, where'd that happen? That happened way back in a developmental stage in the first 5 years. Let me give a concrete example.
Please.
So we know that the issue for thinker phase is loss. And I'm not talking about, oh gosh, I lost my keys, I better, oh goodness gracious. I'm talking about a significant loss in our life. What might that be? Loss of a child, death of a parent. We're talking about a significant loss here. And it's only unique, that loss is only unique to thinker phase individuals. No other phase individual will phase to another floor in response to that kind of issue. That goes all the way back to what's called the solutions developmental stage. And that's roughly age 2 to 3. At that time, what's important in the development of that thinker phase child is to have an opportunity to have a loss. In other words, to have separation, and there's a loss, and maybe mom or dad have to go away for 2-3 days, whatever it is, or just go away to work. The child needs to have an opportunity to feel grief. And If that doesn't happen, then it's like a little time bomb in there. Then that issue has never been resolved. And so later in life, when that thinker phase individual is presented with a major loss, this is the thinker phase person who is going to phase as a result of it. And so phasing again is that period of time while we're in second degree distress that the resulting behavior that results with the problems we might then have in our personal life or professional life causes us to bring into the awareness, I'm not really frustratedly angry at other people, I'm sad. I'm sad with what has just happened. That grief, authentic feeling, will help the person then phase to their next floor.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And that clarifies, and that also is related to the phase development stages you were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a question from Barbara Wanning in Germany that I feel is relating to that, is what happens if a base and phase thinker or persister is not able to authentically feel and express anger? Which distress behavior will be seen with them?
The ones that we might predict. What we need to distinguish with this question, if I'm understanding it, is there seems to be an implication that behind the thinker frustrated anger or the persister righteous anger is the need to feel authentic anger, and that's not the case. If a thinker phase person is in second degree phasing, then behind the frustrated anger is what? The need to feel authentic grief. If the thinker phase person is not phasing, then the reason for the frustrated anger is they're not getting enough of their positive psychological needs met positively. With the second degree persister righteously attacking behavior, if the person is phasing, what's behind it is the need to feel the fear of not being perfectly competent. If they're not phasing, in other words, they've resolved it back in the developmental stage originally, then when they show the righteously attacking anger, what's behind it is they're not getting enough recognition for their convictions and their principled work that they're doing.
Principled work. I love it when you do that. This is so pedagogical for me when you're, using your hand and I see the mask. Also.
Did you hear what he just said? Yeah, it was a compliment. What you should thank you.
Regarding, there's a question that keeps popping up a lot, and I took that question from Matt Gordzata Merg from Poland. She was asking, what is the earliest possible age of the phase change? There's a couple of questions around that, because you were talking about the age 7.
Yes. That is a fascinating question. Theoretically, it's possible to phase soon after these developmental stages. Okay, then Taibi, how long are the developmental stages? Well, there's no set time on them. We have some, infancy, toddlerhood, early childhood. Basically, it's from ages up to about 5 or 6 years. So let's take a hypothetical question and theorize upon it. So we've got a 9 or 10-year-old And under what circumstances would that person phase that early? Well, since I've already identified the developmental stage and with the example, I'm going to continue with that with our thinker. Let's say that we have a little thinker-based thinker phase. As we know, the phase is also the base. The base is also the phase in the beginning. And so this phase thinker child, let's say, was in that developmental stage, solution developmental stage, roughly age 2 or 3, and wasn't allowed an opportunity to feel the grief of separation or of any kind of loss. Perhaps the parent was a rescuing, overdoing parent. And oh goodness, I just don't want to leave you. Oh goodness. And for whatever reason.
There's a word for that. Do you know the helicopter parent?
No. Oh, hovering, always hovering. Yes.
Helicopter. We call them helicopter parents because they're everywhere. They don't fall. Just like they're all over, you know?
Yes. And so, okay, so it's unresolved. Yeah. So we got this. And so the child then starts into life. Well, it is possible for that child to phase again under the following, early in life, under the following circumstances. So at age 9 or 10, what's going to have to happen in order for that child to be phasing? What's going to have to happen is a significant event in life that is related to loss. That child would have to lose a parent or something that's perceived that's incredibly painful in order for the child to have an opportunity to resolve that earlier unresolved issue. And so we could predict then, okay, child has significant loss, phases, gets very attackingly angry and frustratedly angry until the child does what? Feels the sadness that releases that and resolves that issue. So yes, although it's rare, I believe, a child early on could phase, and it would have to be under that formula in order for that to happen.
So to your point of view, it's possible to phase before 7. It's just that it's
soon after 7 or soon after, realistically, yeah.
So interesting. Thank you so much. Enlightening. There was a question that is related to that, I guess. It's like, why do some people phase or don't phase, even after similar distress or similar lengths of time? That's from Lee and King in the US. I think it's related.
Yes, it is. You're absolutely right, Mickaël. The answer is one may be phasing, and the other may not be phasing. One may have have resolved the issue in the developmental stage. One may not have resolved the issue. In other words, we have 2 thinker phase individuals. One of them is not getting enough psychological needs met positively, not enough time structure needs, not enough productive recognition for work. What do we know then predictably would happen? That could be covered then with 2nd-degree distressed behavior. And that's one. So we see this 2nd-degree distressed behavior. Over here, we see 2nd-degree distressed behavior of a thinker phase individual. Both of them, we see the 2nd-degree distressed behavior over a period of time. Now, if we look more closely, this might be more relevant to what? An unresolved issue. So we might want to know, well, was there a major loss in this person's life? Is this person showing more frequently and more intensely the distress behavior? And if so, then what's behind this is not the psychological need. What behind this is the needing to feel the loss. So we might see second degree behavior. The most important thing for, particularly for a coach or a therapist, is the person in second degree because they're phasing or because they are not getting their psychological needs met positively.
Mhm.
And so what would be then of value is if it's because they're not getting their psychological needs met, as a coach, we can offer them a plan of how to get that met. If it has to do with an issue, we can give information, but it may very well be that the individual would profit by going to a therapist. I would encourage people to take PCM2 advanced seminar because it covers so nicely this concept of phasing and these issues.
Mm-hmm. And it works so well for coaches.
Yeah.
I have an interesting question that I think is related also to your profile, Taibi, so I'm not going to hesitate to ask it. It's coming from Mark Cabido in the US, and he's saying, imagine your phase has reached your top floor in your condominium. How would you manage your issue in case you can't show your authentic emotion after a long period of distress? And is there no option in phasing again? So, interesting question, because I know you've experienced it.
Yes, very interesting question. The answer is there's no place else in which to phase into. So that's okay. However, so someone that's phased 5 times is in their 6th floor, and there's still that issue, and the person is phasing in the sense of our operational definition. They are in second degree distress and have not dealt with the authentic underlying emotion to resolve that. We can 2 possibilities. We can offer information, and if that doesn't suffice, then I think going to a therapist is important. I went to a therapist when I was phasing in my persister phase. I was aware at the time that my issue was fear of not being perfectly competent. In my personal life, I had become a father to a rebel young lady by virtue of marrying someone. And in my professional life, I had just opened up some offices around the United States. I was aware of my issue, yet I still went to a psychiatrist to help me resolve and bring more clearly into my awareness so that I could feel that fear of not being perfectly competent. So I'm all for going to a therapist when we can.
A PCM trained therapist.
Boy, that would be wonderful.
That's what I'm always thinking.
Or we go to the therapist and say, here's a model that I believe, and here's what I believe might help me. If that's the case, how would you go about helping me with that?
Changing the topic, I had a question that I found very interesting from Mickaël Dufourneaud in the US. He's asking about persona and true personality. His question is, people often consciously, did I say that right? Excuse my French.
Wonderful.
People
Wonderful.
often consciously try to appear in a certain kind of way at work and socially, and which is sort of the public front of their personality, you know. And how can we show and deal with the difference between their persona and their true personality? And around that question, there was also some questions around the questionnaire. You know, when you develop the questionnaire, it's like, is there a way for you that you found in the algorithm and developing that questionnaire to go around that question?
Let me take the first question. Both of them I need to dissect a bit in order to answer. In PCM, we don't talk about a true personality. We have 6 true personalities. We are a combination of 6. And that creates our personality. We're a model of 6, not of 1. And so all are true in that sense. Now, if I interpret the definition of the description of true to mean the person's base personality, then we're talking about, then are we talking about how do you determine if a person's behavior that we see at work or socially is their base? Well, we cover that very nicely in the seminars. For example, we know that the most commonly used, that is to say most frequent, driver that we see is one's base. Now, for those of you who have this recorded and you play that back, you'll see that I put in a parenthetical expression, and I just told you what my base was with that be perfect driver. And so the most frequently used driver is going to indicate base. We also know that if over a period of time, we can determine, we can see the individual, then there's going to be a correlation with channel, perception, favorite character strengths, our currency, many, many different things. Now, if the question also is, well, what do we do when someone is in that personality type floor, we also know that when we move to one of our floors in our personality, then that's when we access the behaviors that match it. In other words, if I move to if I'm harmonizer base and I go to work and I have to, at work, answer questions, ask questions, be logical, be organized, think logically, and have a perception of thoughts, then that means that I have to go to my thinker floor, because that's where all that is stored and activated. And if someone's there, what do you do with them? Well, you respond in channel, in perception. Now, what's the implication for that? If somebody has come to us with this, asking about this in coaching. In the United States, this frequently ends in what we call burnout. I imagine that's a worldwide concept. In other words, we know that there's 2 things involved going to another floor other than our base. One is, do we have energy, and how do we get that energy to get there? We talk about an elevator. Well, what moves the elevator? Getting phase psychological needs moves the elevator. So I have to have my phase needs met, number one. Number two, once I get to that floor, then how much time and energy can I have to stay there? We call that a bandwidth, and the inventory will identify the relative amount of energy we have there. So at 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm there in my thinker floor, way up there in my thinker floor. And at 10 o'clock, after people have asked me so many questions, and 11 o'clock after I've had to be so logical, what happens when we run out of energy? Well, we know the model says we're likely to drop to our base and that first floor and use the perceptions and the channels there. What happens if that isn't what is needed then in that environment, in that work setting? That's when we naturally get into distress, hence burnout.
So what you're saying is that the model is taking into consideration those gaps from my perception and the perception that I think that the others are from me. So it's always interesting in the building of the persona. There's a question from Romania, from Crina Pentele. I'm not going to be able to say that. Pentelecic. Sorry about that pronunciation, from Romania. In your experience, what do people find hard to understand or implement about PCM?
The power, potency, and effectiveness of process. And I believe that it's hard to move into imagine to seeing the world through process rather than content. I believe one of the things that happens in our learning of the model is that we still initially tend to stay in content and filter things as if we're saying, well, I'm going to focus on you, yeah, and then I've got a feeling and a belief about why you're doing this or that. And the model is really based on, if you see this, do this. And that's a second by second words, tones, gesture, posture, facial expression. And what that really comes down to an interesting formula. And the formula is, what did someone say? Content. What perception and channel did they use? Where do I need to go in me to activate that channel and perception in me? And now let's go back to what they said so that I can now use my process to match their content in response. Process precedes content, the value of it. I believe that that's difficult for
it's a question of awareness, because that's, to my point of view, what your model is bringing. It's awareness, mostly. I like to call it instant process, because it's the second by second you're talking about.
And the wonderful thing is, the more that we move to the different parts of us to do that, the more we appreciate in ourselves that part, and it's easier for us then to value and appreciate that part in the other person as being authentic, and that's how we can communicate better.
Thank you. As a question from friends, triggering the existential question, says, where does the existential question come from? What unique question the 6 existential questions answer? So it's like the question is the existential question answering a question? So, and I know you have something to say around that.
I do. Thank you. I've gotten some really fun, wonderful emails about that, and I've responded to them. And so I've gotten a compilation of my responses, and I thought I'd read it to you. An existential question is a philosophical question attempting to answer what is the meaning or purpose of something or someone. Definition. The insertion of the existential questions into PCM document originated from Hedges Capers Jr., son of Hedges Capers Sr., my brother. And this was, he's so creative. This was back when he worked for Spencer Schenck Capers in Los Angeles, and they were integrating some things, and he came up with these in these existential questions. Then later on, we in KCI produced a sales seminar in which these existential questions were placed, and I was not attentive to that, and I now retrospectively realize that it was a mistake. Now, I don't think we sold many, if any, of those sales seminars. Then, many years ago, while doing a presentation in Paris, I was asked about that, and I gave the history and then cautioned that there's no research to back this up, so they really don't belong in PCM, but they're fascinating about which to discuss. So, in other words, an existential question is a concept about which we can only make subjective behavioral inferences. An existential question is a standard of self-behavior, not a cause of that behavior. And that's really the essence of the existential question. Conclusion: existential questions are philosophical questions. Interesting, and they regard the essence of one existence. Fun to discuss, but counter really to the principles of PCM that we utilize in having research documentation. So they really don't have a place in our seminars, but interesting. So for those who like to philosophize, I'm one, about a training, after hours of the training, then here's a question to drink about. When asked, how do you know if you were alive? We'll stay with the French. Descartes responded, as many of you know, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Now, we might have some information about what his base or phase was, but I put this to you theoretically. What if Descartes had been promoter, base, or phase, and had been asked the same question? How do you know you're alive? Do you suppose that he would have responded with sum vivus ergo sum? I'm alive, therefore I'm alive.
I didn't know you spoke Latin.
Actually, I had 4 years of Latin. Yes. Yeah.
Good.
It's rather dead around here, but what the heck? Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm going to start wrapping up because I want, for the sake of our interpreters, to finish at the right time. So it's like, there was a question that I never dared ask myself. It's like, it's coming from Laurence Bellarot in France. It's, why only one psychological need for imaginer, rebel, promoter phases? It's interesting, that question, because we have two psychological needs for thinker, persister, and harmonizer.
The answer is that the scientific research that we used that was consistent with the rigors of methodological research, simply put, that found that these were mutually exclusive and statistically significant as being the only ones. So it's just a matter of imploring good research design, giving it to a statistician, professional statistician, and what is it? And is it significant at a level that we can be sure that there's only one? So it's a matter of research.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting.
Thank you. There's a triggering question from from the US that to me was from Christina Shea, and she was saying, what would it take in our view to bring PCM to the masses? So she says in the US, but I guess she also means for everyone.
Yeah.
Because it's
well, I have thought about that and over the years, and I don't know the answer, and I'll give you my best guess. My best guess is a bestseller. A best-selling book may very well be now, in our time of being able to spread information like we're doing right now, Zooming. Can you imagine? There's a very popular U.S. lady who is very can, as they say, set the fortunes of someone just being on her show, Oprah Winfrey. And I believe a bestseller would do that. And I'm hoping that Nate Regier's book, Seeing People Through, will do just that. And so I'm just so happy when people are interested in writing books and spreading the word. And that's one of the things, Cyril, that I'm most happy and proud about of you for doing, and that is your commitment to spreading the word of PCM around the world. Thank you. And thank all of you distributors out there and PCMers. This is it. Yeah, this is how to do it. We call it grassroots. But it sure would be nice if a gardener would come along with a book on how to do that for everybody.
And I'm pretty sure the time and money we have invested in the new branding and
yes,
things and bringing things closer to people. That idea of making PCM the tool to make a daily difference, and investing more and more in bringing operational tools for every day for people to use PCM in their everyday life. And I know here today we have like 400 participants, and I know that there's going to be around 1,000 people looking at that video, and it's them bringing PCM to everyone, everywhere, every day, and making it a daily difference. It's what we're doing today, to my point of view, because we are getting closer together. We're bringing a stronger community of CPs. We're going to spread the words, and there's so much passion around your model. So thank you so much for bringing that to us and being here today. I want to wrap up because I want to finish at the right time. We have programmed that wrap time, so we have 5 minutes left, and I want us to have a proper conclusion. One wrapping up question, the last question is there something you want to convey before we go?
Yes, I'm so very, very happy that for all the things we've been talking about in spreading the word. And one of the most important that I think is the personality pattern inventory and the item, the 45 item questionnaire that you and I recently have been working on with translating the validated form of it that the English form of it into French, and that several years ago, Jerome and I worked on, and then you and I recently, and that then can be the basis for the other translated inventories throughout the world, so that there is just one valid instrument inventory that everybody is taking, and so it'll be consistent. Did I understand accurately that that's your intention, Mickaël?
I have Jerome here saying hello, and he's giving you salutes, and it's nice to buckle up with that. It's also for me a good time to speak about daily PCM. We're going to have a new platform to bring PCM to everyone, everywhere, that also is going to be a tool to make a daily difference, because we are going to get closer to people and bringing PCM closer to people and everyone everywhere. We have so many people that are saying thank you here. I can see it's moving everywhere on my screen on that side. And we have so many people that want to ask questions.
Yes.
Sorry for all the people that didn't have their questions asked. Thank you so much again, Taibi, for being here, being with us. Yes, thank you from Victoria, Mickaël, from Edith.
Yes.
These people that are so invested in our community. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for bringing the word to your CPs, also all the distributors. The work you're doing is amazing. I can see Jean-Pierre here. So yeah, there are so many passionate people around the world to bring PCM and make it a tool to make a daily difference for everyone, because it does make a daily difference when we use it properly. It's the question regarding the myths that I'd like to conclude on, because for me it is the one tool that doesn't appear much like it's like 4 sentences on page 46 of the PCM2, the advanced seminar. It's like one of the, I know Cyril and I, it's one of the tools that we use every day to make a daily difference, like being responsible for what we feel, for what we think, and for what we do. And that's for me the essence of what you're bringing, the growth model that we can make out of it, because we can take responsibility and hold responsibility for our actions, our thoughts, and our emotions. So thank you so much, Taibi. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone, all of the participants. There were so many people. I'm so glad that it's working so well. So thank you, Margot. Thank you, Kevin, for being here and hosting this also with me and make it easy. Thank you, Cyril, for all the beautiful work you're doing every day for making this happen too. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Taibi, too. Thank you to all of you.
And yes, it is right on time. Thank you so much, all of you, to be here, to have been here today, and we'll make sure we answer those questions you've provided. We're going to come back to you with answers. I think your distributors, the master trainers around you, can provide most of the answers, and we'll have other webinars. We're going to make it happen to bring that community live and fulfilling for all your needs and your questions for every day. PCM for everyone, every day. A tool to make a daily difference.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.